The Life to Legacy Explained free virtual series will dig deep into what's needed for healthy and happy aging. First, longevity and the journey to ageless living, how simple lifestyle changes can impact overall health, and how to find passion and purpose in retirement. Arm yourself with the vital information you need to make your longer life a better life. Brought to you in part by the Chip Reverse Mortgage by Home Equity Bank.
Good morning, and welcome to part one of the Life to Legacy Explained series. I'm Natasha Ray, live from Zoomer Hall. Longevity may be the most important trend we've ever experienced. It's driven by and in turn affects everything from health to housing, money to technology, and lifestyle to social policy. Monthly this spring, we'll be hosting discussions about how to have not just a longer life, but a better one too. Today we'll be focused on what you need to know to navigate the road to ageless living. We are joined by doctors, a mental health clinician, a biohacker, and other aging experts to discuss how to make your longer life a better life. Our first guest is a doctor whose practice these days is primarily focused on regenerative medicine. And while a good part of that involves hormone replacement therapy and pain management, Dr. Anne-Marie Wysynski, affectionately known as Dr. Wiz, is also steering her patients through many of the everyday maladies of getting older. Welcome, Dr. Wiz.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I love your name, Dr. Wiz.
Thank you.
I guess when you were born, the doctor said she is going to be a doctor in regenerative medicine.
Perhaps.
And we'll call her Dr. Wiz.
Perhaps. It's a childhood nickname, actually, that stuck.
So I'm going to start with a question that's going to sort of frame our discussion. What does longevity mean to you?
Longevity means healthy aging, successful aging. Just because we're aging doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Getting old is a different story if we can age successfully. And to do that, we generally need eyesight, hearing, and mobility and stability, as well as other faculties in order to function in our everyday life. And with anti-aging and regenerative medicine, we can provide that.
So as I'm getting into my older years, I've noticed little things like, my sight has always been bad, but it's getting worse. You know, the hearing, the TV has to get a little louder. My phone, I'm kind of doing a little bit more of this than I used to do before. So what are some of the things that we should look for as we age that could be normal versus those things that may require intervention or treatment?
Well, interesting, in anti-aging medicine, we believe that middle age begins at age 65, so you've got a ways to go. Right. But yes, as things change...
That makes me feel so much better.
Good, I'm glad. And
middle age starts at 65.
At 65.
65, okay.
We have the biological potential, based on the human DNA study, to live to 125 years disease-free. Right. So our goal is to be as old as we can, as disease-free as we can. And so preparing that means having habits and coaching or direction earlier than age 65 to make sure that that foundation is there. So as you said, as cycles are changing, hormones are a great base for all longevity. Without our hormones, we can't function, whether it is our hormones for satiety and food, whether it's our hormones for reproduction and sexual health, or if it's hormones for brain and heart. It doesn't matter where our hormones are. It is a really important aspect of anti-aging. So when men and women replace their hormones when they're needed, they statistically significantly reduce all-cause mortality. So that's a mouthful. So what does that mean? It means that any disease we could think about contracting and dying from is reduced scientifically, statistically significantly. So from a functional point in our own life, it means that we can actually prime ourselves to reduce disease and enjoy longevity.
So one of the things a lot of my friends have been doing lately, I've noticed, is going and getting their hormones tested and then seeing like how their levels are and then doing little tweaks. And I know years ago there used to be a lot of research and news saying, you know, hormone replacement therapy, especially for women. I don't know if it's something you should do, but now the research, I think, is saying something very different. So what advice would you give to women who may still be scared of starting hormone replacement therapy, but it is something that can help with symptoms of menopause and all of that? And I do have to interject. I watched Menopause Musical with my mother, and it terrified me. I went home and Googled how to prevent menopause, which isn't possible, but I think there are some things we can do. So what are some of those? Like, speak a little bit to hormone replacement therapy and why there shouldn't be that fear.
Absolutely. My difficulty is I don't know if I could speak a little bit to hormone replacement therapy because it's a passion of mine. So hormone replacement in the 80s, when the big Y study, the Women's Health Initiative study was on, used synthetic hormones, and that was part of the issue. So the Y conclusions have been largely debunked. As well, the North American Menopause Society had always said shortest amount of time, lowest dose possible. And now the evidence has been clear for at least a decade of the statistically significant reduction in all-cause mortality. And the thinking is changing, although allopathic medicine or your regular family doctor or gynecologist obstetrician is slower to come on board. The standard of care with synthetic estrogens and progestins is still alive and well. For some women that works, but there are issues with that we can prevent by using more natural means. When hormones are replaced, it affects every organ system in our body. So even though they are the reproductive hormones, and we're not looking for maybe menstrual cycles ongoing in our 50s and 60s, although there is evidence that could be more healthy in certain subpopulations. For men as well, men are difficult to get to a doctor because they're not accustomed to being in the medical system as often with children, child rearing, those types of things. But when men are replacing their hormones, they also get these benefits as well. So eyesight is more acute, memory is maintained, skin, and hair, nails, the aesthetic part of our hormonal systems are maintained, heart disease is reduced, osteoporosis is reduced, balance issues are also maintained to have a healthier balance. Falls are a huge issue with populations who are over age 60. They actually are a large source of mortality in the medical system and of patients. So if we can reduce those issues, we could keep people healthier longer.
So I want to touch a little bit on each of those issues. So when you look at sleep, so with sleep, I mean, I aim to get 10 hours a night if I can.
Good for you.
How do you know when your sleep is an issue? Like, because your sleep starts to lessen as you get older. You just have less, I guess, of a need, or your body's just waking you up earlier. But how do you know when it might be an issue that you do want to talk to your primary care provider about?
So the trend is sort of like teenagers. As we age, we tend to go to bed later and get shorter sleep cycles. However, when we see things like memory loss or memory compromise because of sleep disturbances, if somebody is waking more than once a night or twice a night, this is a big issue for men as well as they age and they can't maintain their bladder overnight and they need to get up to urinate. If it's causing sleep disturbance, if there are daytime fatigue issues, falling asleep at the wheel is a big one. And unfortunately, the independence of a license is compromised at times because of sleep or aging or other issues like sleep apnea. I was actually shocked recently to learn that menopause itself is an independent risk factor for sleep apnea. So when I was out of residency, I spent about 2 years in a sleep lab, and now I focus my practice mostly with perimenopausal and menopausal women. And I was aghast because this was a knowledge gap for me that I hadn't realized was an independent risk factor. So when the physiological or the common issues around sleep, like sleep apnea, parasomnias are ruled out, then oftentimes we need to support the brain. But sleep is like a wagon wheel. It is multifactorial. A lot of sleep disturbances from emotional health, stress-related disease, hormone imbalances, any kind of worries, anything as physical as bedroom temperature, the sleep routine. It is a very complex issue, and it is difficult at times because people become accustomed to this slow decline in their functioning because of poor sleep. So it's sometimes hard to tease out.
And so besides weight gain, besides sleep, there's also weight gain and weight loss. And so those can be normal depending on your aging. I know sometimes there's that fear when like your parent starts to lose weight, but a little bit of weight loss or weight gain every year can be normal. So when is it not normal, and when should you again be worried that this may be something that you want to treat because it's possibly indicative of something else?
Absolutely. So the literature shows that if we maintain our weight at age 18 through our life cycle, easier for men. Many times women postpartum or after babies will have a much more difficult time.
Did you say age 18? Like maintain it from 18 to forever?
Correct.
Oh, geez. Okay. Things have changed for me since I was 18.
Exactly. So 18 to 20, whatever our weight was then, if we are able to maintain that or as close to that as possible, it dramatically reduces our risks of disease. However, weight is, again, a multifactorial issue as well and very complex to treat. However, when it is maintained, we reduce our risks of things like diabetes, which now dementia is considered type 3 diabetes.
Really?
Yes, the new name for dementia is type 3 diabetes. So insulin resistance is a really impactful metabolic situation that occurs in many people over the age of 40 or 50 that has a negative downward slide. So for example, insulin resistance has consequences for dementia, heart disease, diabetes, of course, and when we have diabetes, then that increases our risk of all mortality in general. So weight gain, if we can curb it, is helpful, but the popular thinking of, what diet do I go on? Do I follow keto? Do I follow low carb? It's very difficult. Nutrition is a very complex subject matter. It's not easily determined, and so taking an individualized approach for a patient when they have weight issues is really important. It can also be related to hormones. So when females go into perimenopause and menopause and their estrogen is more dominant over progesterone, estrogen makes things grow, specifically fat cells. As men age, they get more belly fat and breast fat. That is because they're losing their testosterone and estrogenizing or feminizing. So when the hormones are balanced, that helps, but hormones are a symphony. So if we're not looking at things like cortisol, which is our stress hormone system, the fight or flight system, our thyroid, our stress levels, those impact weight significantly. And so looking at it as a whole, rather than at one system at a time, and being able to see that bird's eye view can be extremely helpful to help people manage.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I learned a lot today. I mean, I think that my key takeaway is that dementia is actually considered type 3 diabetes. So I'm going to be putting that into my dinner party conversations because it's going to make me seem so much more intelligent.
I'm glad I can help you at your dinner parties.
Thank you, Dr. Wiz.
Thank you.
So lovely to see you. Thank you, Dr. Wiz. A bit later, you will hear from Jillian Price from Hearing Life Canada and get a better understanding of biohacking from Adam Lewis. But first, our next guest once said that one of his biggest retirement mistakes was focusing only on the money and believing that the quality of his retirement depended on how much he had. Mike Drak is an author, public speaker, and recognized authority on retirement. Welcome, Mike.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So I have a question. What prompted you to write Longevity, Lifestyle by Design, which I actually have a copy of here. So what prompted you to write this book?
Well, it's like a form of therapy for me. I struggled with retirement. I failed at it, and that really surprised me, and I struggled for the longest time. And really, I ended up writing 3 books, and they were a form of journaling for me, trying to figure things out. And I came up with the idea because I want to prevent, what happened to me happening for other people. So I decided to write the book and tell them about my experiences, what I learned about retirement, some of the things that you should do. And I knew it's such a big problem. That's when I decided to give it away for free. My wife wasn't happy about that. She couldn't understand it. But
I can understand it.
I thought it was important to give back and help others. So that's the reason.
When I think of my own parents, because I know you have 4 different retirement personas, but I think of my own parents. So when my dad retired, so he worked at a mill for 40 years, which is a hard labor job. He was out on the Fraser River on a tugboat. Like, he was so happy to retire, and he was so good to just be sitting at home watching court TV every day. He was good. When my mom retired, she had worked at a bank for about 30 years. She kind of hated it at first because there's nothing to do, and then you have dad who's happy just staying home and hanging out with the cat, but mom wants to go out and do things. So you have these 2 different types of retirement personas, and now I think in my parents' generation you weren't always proactively planning. You were just getting to that end point of, okay, now I retire, but not necessarily thinking about how you're going to work through that. So can you speak a little bit to the 4 retirement personas that are in your book, and then maybe we can touch on how can those retirement personas work together if they're a couple and have a different view of what retirement could look like?
Well, just like the story you told me, it's a problem because we're seeing divorce rates increase dramatically for the retirees. And what's causing that is, one of the main things is you're dealing with 2 different types of retirees. So one type is comfort-oriented retirees. They want to retire and just take it easy and live a simple life and not be stressed out over things. And, that's good enough for them. Maybe just work in the garden or something, but they just want to stick around the home. And then you could have the spouse would be a growth-oriented retiree. Maybe they want to grow and learn new things, experience new things, travel to different countries in the world, and you know, learn all these things and enjoy life that way. Maybe they want to go to the community center and take up ballroom dancing. Yet the husband doesn't want anything to do with it.
He never wanted to ballroom dance.
Never.
Certainly
never.
not in his retirement
You're going to have
years.
to drag him there. And that's when the conflicts arise.
Right.
And that's why it's important to understand the different types of retirees and try to accommodate your partner. To say, I understand why you need to do this. I understand why it drives you. And I'm going to try to compromise and make that happen for you, but you have to understand what my needs are too and accommodate those too. So, because you don't want to get divorced late in life because it will destroy you both emotionally and financially, and it's hard to recover from. And it's sad to see that when it happens. Another type of retirees, we refer to them as angels. They're givers. They have a very strong need to give back to the community and help others. And when they can't find a way of doing that, it really bothers them. It can affect them physically and mentally, and they're going to be miserable because they can't do it unless they find a new way of doing that. And then there's another type where it's a combination of growth plus a giver. You know, they give, through giving, they grow and support their communities. And, you know, it's very interesting to see these different types. And it makes the lifestyle design process that much easier when you know what type of retiree you are and what your needs are. A lot of people, what I learned, like I couldn't understand why I struggled in retirement. And it wasn't a money issue. I had enough money to retire comfortably. It was something else. And I did a lot of research. It took me about 3 years to review everything, and I got caught up in Maslow and the hierarchy of needs and all that. And then I finally figured it out. It was because of the work I was no longer doing. That was the root of my problem. And it's funny because no one can relate to how you feel. They automatically assume, why can't this person be happy? Because they don't have to work anymore. And the reason I was unhappy was because I wasn't working anymore. And it comes down to finding a way to satisfy your fundamental needs. We all have the same fundamental needs. These are needs we're born with. And they never go away, even in retirement. You always have these needs. And the only difference in individuals is the relative strength of some of these needs will be stronger than others. And what satisfied these needs in the past was the work we did. And when the work's taken away or we decide to retire, we need to find a new way to satisfy these needs.
You're sort of losing your purpose in a sense.
Our purpose,
yes.
we're losing connection, we're losing significance, all these important needs of ours. And purpose is a big one too.
And so which retirement persona are you? And I guess you sort of had to go through that journey to figure out, like, this is who I am. So which one?
Good question.
Which one do you fall under?
I'm both growth and a giver.
Right.
And it's funny because I've changed recently. I guess as I get older now, it's almost turned into a legacy play where I'm spending a lot of time trying to help people, giving free seminars, writing a free book, and giving it away to everyone just to help them. So it's a change in life because before that was a pursuit for money to take care of my family, and that was my big purpose. But when things changed, you know, I had to find another outlet. But yeah, giving plays a big role in my life.
It's almost like reframing the discussion on legacy. And I talk to my husband about this sometimes. I'm like, I know it's important for us to leave a legacy, but I don't know what that means. Because sometimes I sit in my house and I look around and I think, there's gonna be another family living in this house 20, well, maybe not 20 years from now, I'm not that old, maybe like 50, 100 years from now, and they're going to be living their life and loving their life, but it'll be like, I never existed. So like that legacy piece to me is so interesting. And so I think like what I'm hearing you say is like, we can leave our legacy as we're still here, and our legacy can be the work that we're doing in our retirement years. Sure. And it's fine if no one remembers who I am 100 years from now and is using my bedroom and my bathroom and had no idea that I used to be in there. So that legacy piece is so interesting to me. So what tips or advice would you give to someone who's now embarking on retirement is like, okay, what is my legacy and how can I start leaving that?
Well, legacy to me was how much money can I leave to my kids, right? And
I'm going to spend it all. I don't want to leave anything to them. They
and,
better take care of them. I don't know why I would leave it to them.
You know, I lived a frugal lifestyle, and they're going to go out and buy a new car or something like that and have a great time. And really it's changed, because what I want to do is be a good role model for my kids and show how we can give back and help others and, you know, help solve some societal problems and things like that. That's the key to it. That's the key to a happy life. So I'm trying to teach them and also help them at the same time while I'm still alive. You know, everyone's struggling these days with inflation and things like that. So if I can help them out that way too, it makes me really feel good. And I'm doing it while I'm alive.
I like that. You're my retirement role model.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in your book, you mentioned 6 longevity drivers. So I wanted to dive into them. So we kind of already talked about health with Dr. Wiz, but I want to talk about relationships. So even now, and I think this might resonate with a lot of people, if I have plans with someone and those plans get canceled, I'm honestly ecstatic, because that means I get to now stay home and not leave my home, you know, so that to me is exciting, and then it worries me because I'm like, I'm 40, so if I'm excited about staying home now, like, I don't know if it's gonna get better. I don't know if I'm gonna be more inclined to want to leave my house after 7 p.m., which is terrifying. It's terrifying out there. So how do we maintain these relationships as we age and perhaps aren't as motivated to leave the house and go out into the big, scary world?
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought this point up, because relationships is a key longevity driver. And social isolation is, it can increase mortality risk up to 40%, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And it's a bigger health concern than obesity, high blood pressure, drinking, or eating improperly.
So I just want to repeat that. So social isolation can increase your mortality risk by 40%.
Right.
Like, that's substantial.
So it's key. And when you think about older people, they tend to isolate themselves over time, which is really bad. Story about my mother. When my father passed away from pancreatic cancer at age 72, someone put the bug in my mother's ear to sell the house right away and move into a high-rise condo. And I remember she called me up and told me she was planning on doing that. And I said, hold off. You know, let me come over and let's talk this thing through, because it's a big decision. It's going to impact the rest of your life and affect your quality of life too. So I went over and I started talking to her, and I said, Mom, where do all your friends live? And she says, well, I got a friend living on the right side of my house. I have another, you know, friend on the left side. I have another friend, she's a widower. She lives right across the street. And I got other friends up the street. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And I said, okay, where do you go shopping? Where do you do your grocery shopping? Oh, Loblaws just down the end of the street. Hey, great. Where do you do your banking? Well, the bank's right beside Loblaws. Wonderful. I said, and where's your church? Well, she says it's close. I get a short bus ride, I'm there, and she used to go every Sunday. And I said, well, why would you want to give all that up? Mm-hmm. Because these are the people that make you happy. These are the people that you enjoy being together with, right? And I'll never forget, she said, because who's going to cut my lawn? Who's going to shovel the snow? And she said, you can't do it all the time. And I said, no, that's fine. We can just hire someone to do that. That's just the money problem. She goes, that's fine for you to say, but I don't have a lot of money. She had no clue, because my father did all the banking, did the investments and whatnot.
Right.
And I said, I'll never forget, I looked at her and I said, Mom, you have all kinds of money. You have this house here, it's free and clear. You can tap into that for any kind of money that you need to pay for all these things to get done. And she kind of looked at me, she was amazed. Next day she phoned me back and says, Mike, I'm not moving anymore. And I know if she would have moved into a high-rise condo, it would have been far different, where she didn't know anyone. Mm-hmm. And she had the happiest life staying in that house for the next 15 years, right? And it's just those decisions, you have to think it through. And yeah, you need these people around you, because, you know, connection and love is so important. It keeps you going. It gives you a reason to live. Yeah, and we all need that.
It's so true. And we will talk about purpose a little bit down the line, but and I hope my father's not watching this, but if he is, I apologize in advance, Dad. But I did find with retirement, he got a little grumpier.
Oh, yeah.
And grouchier. Sure. And it's like, we want to, and I'm trying to extend grace and understand, because I'm also getting grouchier, so I understand that it's probably going to get much worse for me as well in terms of, but how do we maintain that positive attitude? Because it's also, like, I don't know where the grouchiness or the grumpiness comes from. And so how do we help those who we love to stay positive as they age? And what is some of the pieces that maybe are making us less positive, except for the fact that if you just turn on your TV and see what's happening in the world, you want to jump out of a window?
The answer is, the answer is it comes back to their fundamental needs again.
Right.
You know, your father had some needs that weren't being met in retirement, and that made him grouchy. It made him upset and miserable. And you see this a lot. You see people that have a lot of money, and yet they're miserable in retirement because they can't connect to what they need to do. And, you know, some of these needs are a community again, giving back, a need for significance, a need for a sense of achievement and accomplishment. Right. These needs, that they need to be fed. And if you ignore them, it's going to cost you. And that's why you get miserable. And that's really what drives retirement shock. And it's such a big thing. I read a story about it the other day, and it was a real sad one. It was written by a financial planner about his father. His father had run a successful business out west in a small town. It was a tile business. He was known as the tile guy. If you wanted tile, he was the guy you would go see. And his father was fit. He would swim 80 lengths at the pool 3 times a week. He was a scratch golfer, and he was a black belt in karate. And he had everything going for him. And at age 58, he sold his business. And he celebrated by going on a 2-month trip to Asia. Then he came back, and he played golf most days until one day he didn't feel like golfing anymore. And then, you know, he didn't feel like swimming anymore. He didn't feel like working out anymore. He didn't feel like doing anything. He was miserable. Yeah. And the sad thing about it is, one night, his son received a call from the police department, and they told him his father had committed suicide. He jumped off the bridge in town. Wow. And that really hit home because, you know, I suffered from retirement shock. My father did. I had a good friend kill himself. He drank himself to death because he was isolating himself. And the sad fact is, 1 in 3 retirees will suffer from clinical depression. It's just amazing when you think about it. Yet it's something we don't talk about. Right. And so that's why we need to dig in and find out, you know, how to solve that problem and do the right things to make sure that that doesn't happen to people. And that's why I give away the book. I'm
going to give a copy to my parents after we cut out the piece about the grouchiness, and then I'll send them the link as well. So shh, don't tell them that I said that. You spoke a little bit about when you spoke to your mom about the house and how the house is free and clear, which is amazing. Like, that's sort of what we all aspire. Even when I think of my sort of investment portfolio, it's, you know, having a house is something that I'm looking to maybe, you know, sell as I'm retired so that I have some money. Or not sell, because that's not, you said don't sell your house. So there is a way of tapping into your home and having that financial security so that you can enjoy your retired years. So could you talk a little bit about that financial piece? Because you did say, I had the money I needed to retire, but I was still not where I needed to be with retirement, but that financial piece is still important. So.
Well, yeah, it's important to have financial security because you don't want to lose sleep at night worrying about if you're going to be able to make next month's rent payment or you're going to outlive your savings and things like that. It's very important to know your options. And what I do is I help people design lifestyles. Mm-hmm. And what we do is it's a process, and it's described in the book, it's a 9-step process. And really what we want to do is we want them to create a lifestyle that meets their fundamental needs, that matches up well with their values and their wants in retirement within the constraints of the retirement cash flow. And so we design a lifestyle, and we test it out, make sure it works for them. We come up with a couple of different scenarios and make sure there's no lifestyle traps involved in it, in the design. And then what we do is we cost it out to the last penny. And so, for example, say your lifestyle is going to cost you $80,000 after tax. It's very easy to go to your planner and say, okay, I need $80,000 after tax. Do I have the money? And hopefully he comes back and says, you do. Right. Or many times they'll say, no, you don't. So then we think about it and we say, okay, can we cut some costs out of that lifestyle? Or are there other things we can do? Can we work part-time and generate some extra income? Can we downsize and generate some cash that way? Or can we take a reverse mortgage out on our house to help support any cash flow shortfalls going forward? So it's about knowing what your options are and figuring out the best path for yourself. And a lot of people aren't aware of it. Like my mother, she didn't know, but thankfully her son was a banker, and I could talk to her about things like that.
And I think that's also an important piece of advice. Like if you are in a relationship and one person in that relationship is managing all the finances, it should be a responsibility of that couple to ensure that the other person knows how the finances work.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, life is life, and you never know when you could lose someone. And then all of us, I had a friend the other day say to me, you know, I haven't been to the bank in probably 20 years. And so I wouldn't even know what to do. And that's a really scary position to be in. So I think that's a good piece of advice.
No, that's a great point, and it's a huge risk because for whatever reason, normally the men take care of the investments and the banking. It's like a division of duties. So you separate the duties and that tends to fall there.
Yeah.
The risk is, odds are, the man's gonna die before his spouse. And then she's going to be left holding the bag. And if she's not involved in it, if she's not meeting with the financial advisor, or she's not involved with knowing where the investments are, or many times you see, a husband will pass away, and there's a wild scramble for missing passwords and documentation, and no one knows where it is.
Which bank is the account at?
Exactly.
Like,
or where's the safety deposit box?
Yeah.
I didn't know he had one. He didn't tell me. And these are important things that you need to cover off.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that it's definitely made me think a lot more as I age, about the whole financial piece. But this was it was a very fulsome discussion, and I've learned a lot about sort of my own retirement planning. I'm hoping to retire next year. That would be my goal.
Nothing wrong with that.
Goal.
But I would say keep working part-time.
Okay, I'll do that just because Mike said so. So thank you so much, Mike. I do want to let everyone know, if you go to www.chip.ca/carp, you can download a copy of Mike's book for free, and I will be definitely taking this home. So thank you so much for sharing some time with me this morning.
My pleasure, Natasha.
Thank you. 1 in 3 adults over 65 experience hearing loss. Hearing is something we often take for granted, but it plays a central role in how we experience life. Without it, we can lose touch with people and experiences that mean the most to us. We're now joined by Jillian Price, Hearing Life Canada's Chief Audiologist, to talk about the importance of hearing care and its impact on our health and well-being. Jillian, could you tell us a little bit more about the Hearing Health and Love Your Ears campaign?
Yes, thank you for having me. So I think many of us don't really, pay attention to our hearing, and the reason why is because it's something we do without having to put a lot of effort into it. Our ears just hear all day, and we can often take that for granted. It's one of our 5 senses, and maybe I'm biased, but I would say that it's maybe the most important. Now, if I can just paint a picture, if you think about, a summer day, and you're just waking up, and maybe the window is open, and you hear the birds chirping, and you can hear the leaves rustling because it's a windy day or a slightly windy day. And the kettle is boiling, so you can hear things going on in the kitchen, and there's maybe a little bit of talking. So you know that the house is alive, that people are up and activities going on. Well, think about all the pieces of information that you have gained from your ears, and you haven't even left your bed yet. What would it be like if you couldn't hear any of those? And so that's the importance of our hearing. We really have to take care of our ears because it gives us so much. It's how we connect, it's how we socialize, it's how we build relationships, and we have to take care of our ears, and we have to do that early on because, unfortunately, hearing loss does creep into our lives as we age, and for most of us, it's irreversible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that there's actually a big link between hearing loss and mental health. So
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about how hearing loss can impact your mental health?
Yes, Mike's conversation was it was beautifully said that social isolation is a huge factor in our happiness or overall quality of life. And with hearing loss, that's one of the major risks is social isolation. So as we lose our hearing, we tend to isolate, we tend to pull back. And the rates of depression and anxiety are actually double in those with untreated hearing loss. So social isolation, depression, anxiety, and we now are learning that there is an association between hearing loss and cognitive decline and dementia. So it has serious mental and health impacts if we go without treating our hearing loss. It's not that we can, completely avoid hearing loss as we age, but what we want to do is be proactive. We want to reduce our risk, and we need to have that information in order to make those changes in our lives as we age.
So I have this saying, it's sort of like there's voluntary hearing loss. So I have a teenager.
Yes, there is.
And sometimes I'll say, Ty, and I know he can hear me. And I go, Ty, and I know he can hear me and he ignores me. So that is an example of voluntary hearing loss.
Yeah.
So
selective hearing, yeah.
Yeah, selective hearing. So what are some signs, though, of hearing loss that we should look out for in ourselves or even in loved ones?
Yes. So there are some signs that will happen initially, and just to bring some statistics into it, hearing loss is very common, and so for Canadians age 60 and over, it's almost 50%.
Wow! So
this is a lot of us, and so you're not alone if you are experiencing some hearing loss. But what we can do is we can protect our ears. But what will happen if you do have some hearing loss is the first thing you're going to start noticing is that you're going to start having trouble hearing in less than ideal listening situations. That's with a lot of background noise. So that restaurant, which is noisy, the dishes are clanging, there's lots of people talking, there might be some music playing, and you're not hearing everyone at the table. Now, one thing about hearing loss that maybe people don't know if they don't have hearing loss is it's not an all or nothing. As we lose our hearing, we lose certain parts of sounds. So conversation starts to sound muffled, or people sound like they're mumbling. It's not that you can't hear, you can hear, but you can't hear everything with clarity anymore. So it's the clarity that is compromised. It's not an all or nothing, and this tends to worsen over time. So if you start to notice that people sound like they're mumbling or things are muffled, or you're just struggling to hear in background noise, if you're turning the TV up a little bit louder, if family members are telling you that things are louder, or if you're saying pardon a little bit more often, those are some of those first signs that will happen to somebody young.
And so would we think of our health care, like I know as a woman that every 3 years I need to go and get my physical and my PAP, but we don't necessarily have that same idea in mind when it comes to hearing tests. So is there an age where we should start having hearing tests?
Yes, there is. And that's part of the Love Your Ears campaign is we just want people to think about their ears, and we want, hearing care is self-care. And so put it on your wellness checklist. Sometimes hearing does get missed, and we just really hope that it doesn't anymore. So a really good recommendation and something to keep in mind is because of that statistic of 60 and over with so much hearing loss is that if you are age 60 and over, you should be getting your hearing checked. Get a baseline hearing test at age 60, and that way your hearing healthcare provider can monitor and check and recommend a regular schedule for you, which could be 2 years, 5 years, or maybe every year, depending on what we find.
And if hearing loss is left untreated, because sometimes you think you'll just chalk that up to, well, this is just normal.
Yep.
It's just something that's happening as I age. But are there things that are not so good that can happen as hearing loss gets worse if left untreated?
Yes, well, I think social isolation is, and I think we've already mentioned how negatively that can impact overall quality of life. But if you treat your hearing loss, you have better relationships, better communication, more connected to your family, easier time with conversations, and I haven't even really touched on the mental drain and the energy that it takes to strain to hear all day when you are struggling. I really haven't even touched on the cognitive load. So how much resources you have to use to fill in the gaps for what your ear is not picking up. It is exhausting. And individuals with untreated hearing loss will be exhausted by the end of the day just from trying to hear. And that's why people stop going to their social events. They start to socially withdraw because it's too much energy, it's frustrating, it's embarrassing. And that's when they start to make changes in their lifestyle to accommodate a quieter life. It's not because you want a quieter life, it's because it's easier. So that's, basically treating hearing loss is just, it's related to overall quality of life, improvement of quality of life, and not being at risk for social isolation and all the other factors that come with that.
And so what are some of the hearing aid options, and has technology changed much? Like, I think I get to wear this fun little earpiece when I'm here on stage, and
Yes,
I wear it out in real life too. I like to think I'm a CIA agent outside of this stage, but what are some of the options that people have for hearing aids?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're mentioning that, because what I want people to know is that you don't have to suffer. There is solutions out there. And for most of us who will experience hearing loss, it is permanent sensory neural loss, which means it's irreversible. We can't take a magic pill or bring it back. So we are trying to find solutions that can accommodate for that. And the most successful solution for most of us is hearing aids. That's amplification. And my gosh, these are magical little mini computers that can do things that are just, they blow my mind. They're amazing.
What kind of things can they do?
Well, what they can do is essentially re-engage somebody back into their life.
Right.
I just think of my father as a personal experience, and if he doesn't wear his hearing aids, he cannot function. He has moderately severe hearing loss. He wouldn't be able to watch TV, answer the phone, have communication with my mom. He really wouldn't be able to function without hearing aids. He can do all of that.
Right.
And it's because of that technology. Without that technology, his life looks completely different, sounds completely different. So it re-immerses him back into his life. He has connections, communication, family, love, all the things that we as social beings, we want and we need. We need our hearing. We need to be able to connect with people. And as human beings, this is how we connect, is through communication. But the technology advances, going back to your question, is Bluetooth technology is the latest, I'd say, amazing technology that has brought the rest of the world into someone who wears hearing aids. And that's because you can connect it to a smartphone, you can connect it to your TV, you can connect it to a regular telephone. You can now
Can I connect it to someone else's telephone so I can hear what they're saying?
We'll probably get there, yeah, you probably can, to be honest.
Perfect for my CIA job.
Yeah. But it's advanced with modern technology, and
Right.
Almost everybody has a smartphone now. So if you can listen to phone calls, so the hearing aids become like your wireless headphones. And if you can stream everything through the hearing aids, somebody with hearing loss can essentially have the advantage and use the benefits of all this Bluetooth technology that is available. Again, I just bring up my father. He would never be able to do any of this or talk on a cell phone before Bluetooth technology. So this has changed his life dramatically, and I know it's changing many, many lives of those who do wear hearing aids, and they can now use all the fun gadgets that are out there.
Amazing. And I'm glad to hear that, because that means now when you're speaking to your father, he's fully understanding what's happening and be immersed in that conversation. So just to wrap us up, what is the first step that someone can take to explore hearing loss treatment?
Get your hearing tested. It's really that simple. I mean, really, at the end of the day, you don't know if you don't get your hearing checked. And for people with hearing loss, as it's the initial stages, they often are the last to know. It's usually your family, your loved ones that will tell you, I think you might have a hearing problem. I think you're not hearing very well. So listen to them and get your hearing checked. It's painless. It takes less than an hour to do. It's complimentary, at least at Hearing Life it is. So just go in and get your hearing tested, and knowledge is power. So once you know what your hearing levels are at, then you can take proper steps. And that's step number one.
Great.
Just get it checked.
Well, thank you so much, Jillian. Advances in medicine and technology are contributing to big gains in life expectancy, but quantity doesn't always mean quality. So how can you stay sharp and vital as you enter your golden years? One key factor is your mental health. We are now joined by Leslie Giddens-Zuker. Leslie is a clinician with the Geriatric Mental Health Outreach Team at the University Health Network in Toronto. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you for having me.
So we've spoken a lot about mental health and declines in mental health. So can you speak a little about are declines in mental health related to aging?
I mean, definitely there are going to be changes in your mental health as you age, but I think it's really important for people to know that depression is not part of the aging process. So if you start having true signs of depression, it's something that needs to be followed up by a physician, whether it's your family physician or a geriatric psychiatrist. Changes in mood are normal as you lose your independence, as you lose areas of function, as you lose members of your community or your family or your friends. And that's gonna change with time, and people are gonna be able to adapt. But if you're seeing real signs in a family member of real depressive episodes where people are not sleeping or there's significant weight loss or anything that's a cause for concern of a friend of a family member, we need to address it. It's not a normal part of aging.
So you talked about things like withdrawal and weight loss. So as a caregiver or a family member or a friend or even a neighbor, what are some of the things that we should look for that could indicate a decline in mental health? And then B, it's a two-parter, like I'm a teacher. What are some of the things we can do to reach out to someone without making them feel ostracized or uncomfortable?
Of course. So, I mean, I remember when my children were young, there's this famous saying that says it takes an army to raise your children, and you really look for support from your family members and your friends and your neighbors and your community. I think the same for helping someone age gracefully and respectfully and in their own home. They're going to need a lot of support. They're going to need their family members to check in on them. They're going to need their neighbors if they're a widow or single. They're going to even maybe need a doorman or somebody to just make sure that they're safe every now and again. I think it's really important for friends and family members to recognize signs of someone isolating themselves, or if they're noticing that they're not answering their phone or they're sleeping at unusual times, or they're acting a little bit different than their regular self. They can't be encouraged to come out for family events or family dinners. They don't want to participate in any kind of activities or programming or events. There could be cause for concern that there's a change in their mood. I think in approaching a family member or a friend about any changes that someone's seeing in their mood or a concern about social isolation, you have to be really careful. You don't want to insult somebody. You don't want to point out a problem that they might not even be aware of yet. You just want to come at it with a supportive lens and say, we'd really like to have you at this event. Are you able to make it? What's stopping you from getting there? Sometimes it's transportation. Sometimes it's just not having the right clothes in their closet. After the pandemic, people don't necessarily fit in their clothes that were in their closet. We all know that these changes have happened. If someone's living alone or living as a caregiver to their partner who might be in a poor physical state, worse than themselves, they might be experiencing some emotional or mental changes as a result.
We know that accessing mental health services is difficult. It doesn't matter where in Canada you are, it is difficult. So do you have any advice around how people can access supports? And then also, while we're waiting for supports, what are some things we can do as loved ones to support someone who may be experiencing mental health decline?
I think one of the things from a positive perspective that came out of the pandemic is that our world became very virtual and very accessible. So you can now see a family doctor, an emergency room doctor online.
A veterinarian?
You can see a vet. I don't have a pet, but I'm sure you can see a vet as well. You can participate in online activities, exercise classes, religious sessions, later life learning. You can do pretty much everything online if you have access. I know sometimes people are not as technologically savvy as they get older, but if they're given some basic instructions, whether it's on an iPad or a smartphone or on a computer, they can probably access their general practitioner. And if not that, everyone has a landline still and can speak to their family doctor. So I think physicians have been more available to their patient population since the pandemic because people really went through many different crises and many different kind of states of emotional well-being. I think there's way more services now online. There's virtual therapy. You don't have to leave your kitchen table if you want to get a therapist. There are a lot of free services, and there are a lot of services that would cost money if people had benefits or retirement pension plans that would make it available to them.
And I think it's great that there are so many virtual services. I was using a lot of those online workouts and you know, watching church sermons online. But beyond that, are there ways that we can try and motivate the people in our life to go outside? Because it is great to access everything online, but it's also lovely to go out to this wonderful landscape that you see here behind me.
Quite beautiful.
So how could we motivate people?
I mean, I think communication is key. We have to stay in contact with our loved ones and our friends and our family members as they age. I think accountability is really important. So a schedule is really important, whether it's an old-fashioned calendar on the fridge or someone who's more technologically savvy has their calendar and schedule in their iPhone. I think it's important for these individuals as they're aging to know their appointments, to be accountable, to have somebody call them if they're not coming to their social event or their medical appointment or their church group. It'll make for people to show up more, I think, in the future if there's some level of accountability.
In moving to staying sharp, how do we stay sharp as we age? What are some ideas or tips you have around that piece?
Yeah, I think, you know, we all hear about this in the news. I think it's important to stay current, to watch the news, to read the newspaper, although it's rather distressing at times. There's online ways of staying sharp, whether you're playing Mahjong or you're playing different type of card games with other people, you're doing Sudoku. There's so many ways that you can keep your brain sharp. And you know, I think just communicating and talking, as Jillian was talking about, hearing is a very important piece. Sometimes we think a family member or a loved one is becoming forgetful because they're not answering your questions appropriately, or you think they've forgotten what you told them. They didn't hear. So all of these pieces are like a more holistic view of a larger puzzle. We need to ensure that these individuals are eating well. Appetite and healthy diet is incredibly important for brain health. Getting adequate sleep, exercising, moving, even if it's moving around your home, keeping mobile and ambulatory is so important for your mental health as well.
Yeah, I always make fun of my mom because she's obsessed with Candy Crush, but I do believe it helps her because she literally, like when she's cooking, when something's waiting for something to boil, she's playing it, and before she goes to bed at night, she plays it. So, you know, even these like little habits that we have of little games and things that we like to play, they're all things that help us stay sharp.
And they're therapeutic.
Yes.
And just having you check in on her. I'm sure you're a great daughter and you call her every day.
I'm probably the best daughter ever. Yeah.
So as long as you continue calling her and checking in on her, and you know, you were mentioning earlier, and I did laugh, you're saying your dad's a bit of a grouch.
Yeah, we're going to have to edit so much of this.
Yeah, that's okay. I hope dad's not
my dad. Someone else's dad is really grouchy.
Dad, but you know, people age differently. There's no cookie cutter model of how people are going to age and maintain their own mental health. He might be very happy just staying at home and watching game shows and court TV, whereas your mom needs different activities to keep her happy. And it's just kind of finding a happy medium. But you do want to make sure that when you're saying someone's a grouch, that they're not actually becoming depressed, right? We want to make sure that there's no underlying medical cause for a bad mood. And our moods do fluctuate. We don't always wake up on the right side of the bed. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and I think that was the piece that, you know, it's sort of figuring out, like, is someone just grouchy because, it's sometimes the world sucks, or is it because there's an anxiety or a depression issue, and so, you know, trying to, again, like we spoke about earlier, teasing out that piece and then finding a gentle and grace-filled way to ask questions to see if there's support that might be needed.
You definitely don't want to put anybody on the defense. You don't want to make anybody feel bad about their mental health. You know, having aches and pains can definitely affect your mood. As one gets older, there tends to be more physical comorbidities that impact your mental health. But again, there are many more opportunities to have rehabilitation, and there's many more chances for somebody to focus on those things and help them improve if they have the motivation. If you're lacking motivation and you're kind of just getting into a bad state, that's when you might want to challenge that and say, how can I help you? You know, can I take you to that appointment?
Right.
Or even if it is something virtual and you're encouraging somebody who is not accustomed to using technology, like there's a great course online. It might be hard for you to figure out Zoom. Let me come over and show you how to use Zoom. So moving forward, you're able to participate in something like that. That's quite a supportive approach.
Yeah, and even going to the public library, like there's so many things there that are free and offered to the community. And I think my brother and I have this joke that we take mom and dad on field trips. Yeah. So like, pick up mom, take her to high tea, and then the joke is always that she didn't get her permission form filled out. So, just cute ways of...
And quite honestly, it doesn't have to be like a real field trip. It could just be you going to Costco with nothing exciting,
right.
But...
Please don't make me go to Costco.
Okay, don't go to Costco, but just an outing, just encouraging, I want to have your company for an hour. It's going to mean a lot to someone whose life is mainly indoors, right. Whose life is mainly alone, especially if somebody is a widow or is single and has lived alone for many years and is retired, right? There could be very little keeping that individual busy and kind of satisfied throughout the day. So any encouragement to get out, especially as the weather gets nicer, we got to keep encouraging people.
Well, thank you so much for coming to speak with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
A study out of the University of Saskatchewan in adults 50 and older found that 40% of individuals taking supplements were ingesting more than their upper limit of the highest safe levels of one or more of those supplements. Our next guest is Dr. Kim Abog, a naturopathic doctor based in Toronto. She works with her patients to create practical health management plans and offer integrative health solutions to their everyday aging maladies. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So as a naturopath, what are some of the things that you see the most in your aging patients?
So I do get the privilege to see a whole host of concerns. There are some people who, come to see me to co-manage their existing health conditions. So they might have interest in co-working with their family doctors, endocrinologists, their specialists, and even allied healthcare practitioners like massage therapists, chiropractors, physiotherapists. And then in that subset of people that I see who are looking for that co-management piece, they, some of them have the intention of maybe reducing the dosages of their medications or coming off completely, to which I do ensure that, we talk about the risk of harm of, coming off of them, and of course, providing some options in how to safely go about those specific goals. Then I do have some people who are more interested in optimizing their overall health and wellness, their longevity, and they are, they're not particularly afflicted with any type of, existing health condition, but they might have some experiences with menopausal, postmenopausal symptoms. Maybe they have trouble with making their, keeping up with their weight, or they might have an existing, or managing their diabetes and whatnot, right? So it's more on the milder side of things. So I do get to see different, ails and aches and pains, essentially, right? So.
Right. I'm quite upset that an entire cupboard in my kitchen has been taken up with my husband's supplements. I could really use that cupboard for other things, and we'll talk about that another day.
Oh, yeah.
For me, the supplements world it's huge and it's confusing. So how can we tease out what could actually be beneficial to me, like as a woman in my 40s, or as a man in their 60s, and versus something that's just snake oil and probably isn't going to do anything or potentially even cause harm?
Exactly. So that is a really good question, and I feel like everyone should be really critical of the information that they're reading, they're consuming, whether it's online or whatever. So a few things to maybe keep in mind. Products-wise, in Canada at least, it's very strict. Health Canada has very strict regulations when it comes to companies selling products that claim to have specific health benefits. So companies do have to measure up and to have studies that back up whatever they're claiming for. And And also, like you said, there's so much information. It's very conflicting when you kind of go into the world of nutrition science. So it's always helpful to keep an open mind, see where the information is coming from, because what you're reading there is general information, right? They might not be, there's always some subtleties there, what the actual numbers that are stated in the articles or in the media, there's always a chance that that's accurate, may not have accurate communication with respect to the statistics, what percentage is reducing the risk of what disease, right? So, there's always that miscommunication piece. And also, that information that you take in with respect to supplements, nutrition, and all that, they might not be relevant to your experience of your own health concerns, right? So it really is important to, take that with a grain of salt and have some objective assessment. So, I always recommend having another set of eyes to look at your health history. I'm a little biased here, so working with a naturopathic doctor can be a great option for some people who might be overwhelmed with this many bits of information. So an ND, naturopath, can be helpful in tapering down what your options are, understanding what physiological, environmental, mental, emotional factors are driving the progression of your concerns. And in that span of time that you're spending with your naturopath, it might be helpful for them to give you options that will actually benefit your case. So then specific nutrients that are not 10, 20 bottles at a time are going to be more beneficial in your case, and you can save a lot of that space in your pantry.
Yeah.
You can use other things.
So many bottles, it's insane. I have no idea what's happening in there. There could be a person in there for all I know. So as a naturopath, it's great. There's so many complementary therapies and pieces of information that you can give to patients. But how do you recommend patients work with a physician and a naturopath together to ensure that whatever they're doing with their doctor is complementary to what they're doing with their naturopath, so that those two disciplines can work together and not at odds with each other?
Yeah, that's a really good point and question. I think it's good to preface that healthcare has to be centered to the patient, right? So, and we have to listen to their unique needs. And so healthcare practitioners and that team should all have open lines of communication at all times. Now, that doesn't really happen all the time. And so at least on our end as naturopaths, we do ensure that we are at least very aware of what's going on, like what kind of work our mutual patients are doing with their practitioners, their specialists, so we don't interfere and we don't counteract with the progress that they've done. But at the same time, we're able to communicate, okay, these are your options, in this perspective of maybe conventional medical management, and then you have other integrative health solutions. So people are more informed, right? And I think that's the basis of the ideal healthcare system, is that you have more than a few options to ensure that you're living the best life that you can have. So
yeah, it's important for patients to feel empowered about their own health. I think we've sort of moved away from the doctor is God and I do everything the doctor says to now empowering patients, but then still working as a collaborative team versus you and them. Yeah. When I did a quick Google search when I was doing research for this article on what is the #1 supplement I should be taking at this age, and it just keeps saying vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D, which is very important. But what are some of the vitamins and minerals, because I'm sure it's more than just vitamin D, that we should be taking as we age? Okay, yeah, so very good question again. And I think if I answer it very specifically, it would be ironic because it's so individual, right? This question, at least the answer to this very personal question, it really depends on what your experience, what your previous health history looks like, what your current experience of health looks like, right? So that will be the very basis of what kind of nutraceutical solutions would be more efficient for you. But you're right, I think vitamin D has earned its rep over the years because it is a fat-soluble vitamin. It's also called a prohormone because it kind of looks like a hormone. But more importantly, it's so involved in so many body systems in that, it's become a reliable marker, specifically what your levels are. It's become a reliable marker for how disease is going to progress, right? So kind of touching on what Dr. Wiz said, there's a lot of overlap with, metabolic health, reproductive
reproductive health, your digestion, your thyroid health, and so much more. So when I say vitamin D, I'm not talking about just popping 1 or 2 soft gels, right? We have to really be efficient in dosing that. So I think it's helpful to just do a simple blood test and really find out where your levels stand, because that level is more indicative of that disease progression, or someone's experience of the progression of their concerns. Because when we have an accurate knowledge of where that level is, your practitioner, your healthcare practitioner, who is able to help you restore your vitamin D levels to sufficiency, you would have more supervision and more precise care. So you might receive a recommended regimen of maybe high or bolus dosing of vitamin D, or maybe not. Maybe there's something else that's going on, right? So maybe on a general standpoint, to answer your question, I think across the board, also considering things like nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that provide antioxidant actions. I think it's, to put it simply, it does have an impact on a lot of metabolic markers that pretty much affect hallmarks of aging. Mm-hmm. So this is also why, fruits and vegetables are always going to be pushed to...
And that's what I was going to say. I always say that my husband and I are our own social experiment, because I do not take one supplement. Mm-hmm. But I try and eat healthy, mm-hmm. don't drink alcohol, drink a lot of water, work out, mm-hmm. and then he does all of those things, mm-hmm. and then some weird things that we'll get into with Adam later, and also takes every supplement under the sun, like mm-hmm. a cup of them, every day. With dinner. I don't know what he does in the morning, because he wakes up at some ungodly hour. What I'm really getting at is, mm-hmm. who's going to win? Am I going to win this contest between him and I?
Oh, it depends. Maybe you will win.
I'm hoping I'm going to win, but am I doing the right thing by assuming that I'm getting enough from eating fruits mm-hmm. and vegetables and trying to eat clean?
I think that's suffice. It's sufficient enough. I think it would also help to kind of, you would reflect on your experience of health. I like to say maybe go to head-to-toe approach. So see if there's any signs and symptoms of headaches, migraines, maybe vision issues, hearing loss, or kind of going down to your neck. Are there maybe thyroid issues like weight gain or weight loss that's unexplainable, or even energy issues, right? And then you go into digestion, your cardiovascular health. Kind of do a little check-in with that, and even your mobility, your lower body, right, and all those things. So if any one of those issues kind of ring up, then maybe that's an opportunity for you to explore to see if that's something you can support, and then maybe assess whether it's you're satisfied with your current state of health, because you're probably a winner. Right?
Okay, so what she said was I won. So I want you all to remember that. I won. Thank you so much, Dr. Abog.
No problem. Thank you.
When is the last time you jumped into freezing cold water on purpose? Our next guest has made this a life practice. We are now joined by Adam Lewis. Adam is a lifelong student of human wellness and optimization through means of biohacking and natural living. Hello, Adam. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Sorry, my words are not working right now. So I had a few questions for you, just focused on what you do in terms of longevity. What does longevity mean to you?
Sure. So longevity is really interesting, because I'm obviously not someone that is old or that feels like longevity should be a priority. But
you're actually 85, and I think you look incredible.
I'm doing something right.
You look really good for your age.
Thank you, Natasha.
You're welcome.
I'll share all the secrets in the next episode. No, but to me, what longevity really is this process of aging, but not necessarily just aging, but how much energy, how much life do we have in our days? Mm-hmm. So we touched upon it earlier. I think there's this concept of lifespan and of health span, and even at 30 years old, I still notice that there's decreases in energy levels. There are more fragilities, and then what can we do to augment that so as to have more energy, more ability to enter each day with the vitality that we want to feel happy.
And I wanted to talk about the cold plunge piece. So my husband does do this. So every day we have a barrel sauna, and he goes into the barrel sauna for 20 minutes. And I can see him, because when I'm working out, I can see him running around the yard. And then we have our pool, which right now is freezing. It's 3 degrees, which is really cold. I'll cold plunge up to 10 degrees. That's good for me, just for funsies. But he has made this a life practice. And so he does the cold plunge for 5 minutes, and back in the sauna, then cold plunge again. And my mother swears that his joints hurt because he cold plunges, because it's something that she doesn't understand. So can you explain a little bit about the benefits of this crazy new practice that people have been picking up.
Absolutely, and it's not even crazy. It's very practical, and kudos to your husband because he's not just doing the cold, but also the hot, and that's a form of what we call contrast therapy, which has gained a lot of popularity due to the empirical evidence coming out as to why it's so good for you. So we can break it up into the hot and the cold if that's helpful. So if we can start with the crazy part, the cold, because how many of us are familiar with this idea that if you go out in the cold, you're going to catch a cold.
Yeah, if you go out with wet hair, you're going to get sick.
Yeah, who came up with that? Because
my mother, my mom. Yeah,
my mother too. I think most of our moms, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But it turns out it's actually quite the opposite, where deliberate cold exposure, this idea of consciously subjecting ourselves to being in the cold, has a ton of benefits, including enhanced immune function, including actually alleviation of soreness of joints. You think when we get injured, what do they recommend? Put some ice on it, because what happens is the ice actually decreases inflammation, and it's that inflammation that causes that soreness. So by getting into the cold deliberately for 2 to 5 minutes, your husband is effectively reducing the inflammation, enhancing his immune function, and then also, there's so many benefits, but some of my favorites in the cold are actually the mental and the neurological benefits. So by spending 2 to 5 minutes in that 3-degree water, what's actually happening is he's also producing endorphins in his body. So neurochemicals such as noradrenaline, such as dopamine, these are the neurochemicals responsible for feeling alert, vigilant, alive, motivated. Those are increased by up to 250% from just 2 minutes in an ice bath. And
I say it a little tongue-in-cheek, it's not actually new. Like Scandinavians have been doing this for centuries, and they seem to be doing great. So clearly it's something that does help with longevity. And what my husband always says is our bodies are not used to being stressed. And so some of the things you're talking about is, the effects of how we're helping our body by putting it under this stress.
Exactly, and that's a beautiful concept that we can talk about, which is this concept of deliberate stress, or hormesis, which is a fancy way of saying what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, which is very true and empirically proven that whether it's stress through the cold or stress through the heat, there is a neurochemical and even just call it a psychological element of resilience that we build out, in that we can do difficult things and not shrink from them, but actually grow from them. And that is a concept to embody in our physical bodies, but then also just in the way that we operate in life.
What does biohacking mean to you?
It's a great question. Yeah. And I know it's this crazy term for those of us that haven't heard of it. So maybe we'll start with, what is it not? So you hear the term biohacking and you think, okay, maybe there's like some guy at a computer and maybe he's wearing a ski mask and he's hacking away at something.
And then taking supplements at the same time.
Supplements so we can hack faster. And that's definitely not what it is. Bio referring mainly to our biology. So bio often people think like the earth and the planet, but in this case, it's our biology. And to me, what biohacking is, it's not hacking in terms of being at a computer, although there is often technology involved, but it's just a means of finding new routes from an input to an output, the inputs being what we do to augment our health through changing our external or our internal environments to achieve the optimal state of our well-being. So everybody's a biohacker, in my opinion. I think all of the previous speakers, they were referring to modalities of augmenting our day-to-day lives to achieve a better way of healthy living. And I think what separates the biohacker perhaps from the day-to-day health optimal pursuist, if you will, is there's often measuring, quantification, and just a little bit more discernment to understand why are we doing the things that we're doing in pursuit of that optimal health, taking a bit of ownership, taking that sovereignty of I can be responsible for how I show up, and that there are tools available to help do that.
And I want to talk about that measuring and optimization a little bit, because I notice you're wearing a watch that is probably measuring everything that's happening in your body right now. And technology has really made a lot of strides to the point where I feel almost less worried because our watches are going to tell us if our heart has a weird rhythm or if there's something happening. So can you speak a little about that sort of wearable technology and how that assists with optimizing for a biohacker such as yourself?
Absolutely. So there's so many crazy acronyms and things we can measure, and without getting too into the weeds, but there is this opportunity to apply almost like a management principle. You know, what gets measured gets managed, and therefore can be improved. So we can take one example, which is our heart rate variability, something that this is called a Whoop band. It measures, you know, a whole laundry list of metrics, but we'll narrow in on this one. And heart rate variability is that ability for our nervous system to switch from parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, to sympathetic, to fight or flight. So the ability to navigate between those two states of our autonomic nervous system is a very strong indicator of our health. And what these bands can do is help indicate what our HRV is. You know, ranges from like 50 to 150. It's unique to each person. So then what's cool about that is, okay, we have something we can measure, and now we have this opportunity to introduce modalities to affect how healthy, how high or low that HRV is. Okay. Who wants to actually do one right now? It's free to all of us.
Oh, you're doing something to us right now?
Yeah.
Okay, what is this?
We're going to use our breath as a tool to consciously modify our nervous system, which affects our HRV.
Okay, we're all doing this. I'm putting the clipboard down.
Yeah, so what we're going to do.
Everyone put the cameras down.
We're going to do a deep breath in, so 2 sharp inhales, and then out the mouth exhale. So we all just biohacked by means of having modified our nervous system through what is called a physiological sigh, a technique that has been empirically proven through 2 very notable scientists, Andrew Huberman, David Spiegel, to show that just what we did helps to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, which we often spend too much time outside of because the environments we live in right now actually have us in that fight or flight, have us a little bit too activated too often. So we are stressed, so our blood pressure is up, our cortisol is up, and we can't recover. Whereas just doing a simple double inhale and exhale, 2 in through the nose, 1 out through the mouth, brings us back to that calmer, more present place where we can connect better with each other, be less stressed, be a bit more ourselves.
So what advice would you give to someone who's looking at starting some of these techniques? Like, I know when we look at breathing, I've learned a lot about like the Wim Hof technique, which is, you know, very like sort of rapid. I won't be able to describe it properly, but it's a breathing technique where the man who developed it essentially is able to like literally stand in a box of ice for God knows how long because of how his breathing is. But how would you recommend someone start to look at cold plunging or saunas or meditation if you've never started before and you're a little scared about jumping into a cold pool?
Well, just not being a medical practitioner, I'd say consult with you know, your medical practitioner of choice. Make
Great
sure that you
advice
don't
to
have
start
any
with. Yeah.
you know, heart issues or just anything that might actually be impacted, because these are powerful. These do have very positive effects, but we need to be conscious of what's already existing within us, that it doesn't get too disrupted. Now, let's say you get cleared from your medical practitioner. I would say it's definitely important to start with our breath. That gentleman you're referring to, Wim Hof, he uses his breath as a way of modifying his nervous system to sustain the discomfort of the cold. Same goes for the heat as well. So really cueing into that breath. Othership, the organization I work with, we have a breathing app. So if you have a iPhone or a Google Android phone, we have a breathing app that teaches you how to use your breath to do exactly that, to upregulate, to give you energy, to downregulate your breath, to bring that calmness, or to even do a bit of both if you want to just hyperoxygenate and revel in the benefits of your breath. Because that way you're not left to your own devices. You know, we can do these, you know, just conscious on our own physiological size or box breaths, but it's fun to do it with some guidance.
Right.
So I would suggest that. And then we also have a facility with saunas and ice baths. So one downtown, another one opening in Yorkville later this year, where we have ice baths and we have professionally trained individuals that guide you through these experiences. And I think that part is really important, again, because these are powerful modalities. They also come with their, you know, necessity for guidance.
Yes.
And then you can venture into, you know, being a yahoo like me and going to Lake Ontario in the middle of the winter and punching a hole in the ice and
I've
jumping in for fun.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, don't start there. But start with a...
That's how I started it. I don't recommend. It's great that there are people, facilities available now that do have that guidance available.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for making all of us biohackers. You can all get your certificates at the door when you leave. So thank you, Adam. That wraps up today's program. I hope your takeaway is a few easy tips on the longevity practices that will send you on the road to ageless living. Join us next month on April 27th at the same time for part 2 in our series, Living in Place 3. Until then, thank you for joining us. Signing off from the Zoomerplex in Toronto, I'm Natasha Ray.